Let's create a pivotal impact. Friends in the industry. So have you ever wondered what the future of the transportation industry is going to look like as our industry continues to integrate the right technologies into our workplaces? So a question I often hear after speaking about this topic is, how on earth do I know where to start? And what is the right technology? There's so much to research, so much to understand and comprehend. So I always recommend with this, start with, what do you need? Not necessarily what do you want, but start with what you need and fully understand the needs. Then you can add some wants onto your wish list. Possibly the need is you need to make more money with your current equipment, or possibly you want to improve the culture within your own organization between drivers, dispatchers, and how they communicate. But ultimately, that's up for you to decide. So as our industry continues to progress with the integration of technology, my encouragement is to always do your research to ensure that you're integrating the right technology, but also that you're working with the right provider that actually cares about your business needs. This is why I'm super excited for my conversation today, as I speak with Shiva Bhardwaj, CEO and founder of Pitstop Connect. So in our conversation, Shiva discusses his journey in the transportation industry and how Pitstop Connect is helping carriers maintain a safer fleet, increase their vehicle usage, and ultimately create more revenue in their businesses. So I encourage you to visit pitstopconnect.com to learn more about their solutions, but also you can ask for a demo to check out the platform, which I highly recommend that you do, because they're helping different carriers save money, keeping vehicles safer on the roadway. And I just, again, highly recommend that you check it out. So I'm Josh Hannabury, the host of the Truck Focus podcast. If this is the first time that you've ever checked out one of our podcasts, I really welcome you to our community. For all of our dedicated listeners, I just wanted to continue to say thank you so much for your investment of time. So make sure that you like this episode and share it out, subscribe to the channel, and it's going to be a really good time. So I look forward to the impact this conversation is going to have. Let's get to it. Shiva, welcome to the Truck Focus podcast. Super excited for our conversation today. And I actually wish we hit record a couple minutes before, because like we were talking about, I just get really excited in this space because you as an individual, as an entrepreneur, your team, Pitstop Connect, I really value where you're taking the industry. And I really value the place that you're coming from, as I was saying, it's a need, not just a want. And I think that's really important as our industry, obviously the transportation industry integrates more technology. We're obviously seeing ELDs coming into the game. And I think just what you're doing and where you're headed is going to benefit so many people on so many different fronts. So I'm really excited for our conversation today. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Josh. I'm also really excited to just talk about where things are going and how AI and analytics can really help fleets and this industry move to the next step without getting overwhelmed, because I think there's a lot of noise out there, and it'd be nice to dissect and have that conversation about the details.
Agreed. And I'm glad you mentioned the noise, because I think a question that even myself I've been through is, well, how do I know what's the right one? And you can Google something and you get 5,000 pages of something. It's a lot of information. So I'm glad you mentioned that off the hop, because I agree. I'm excited to dissect into what that could look like. And ultimately, working with people like yourself and your team, it's not that hard from an end user perspective. And I think that's something that our industry will really value as, again, they learn a little bit more about you. So why don't you start us off and kind of highlight what's your experience been in the transportation and technology and just the sectors that you've been involved in?
Yeah, sure. So I actually grew up in family-owned dealerships based out of Toronto. From a young age, I spent a lot of time in the back with the mechanics, so truck mechanics, vehicle mechanics across the board, and realized that computers were taking over what it meant to be a technician. It was no longer swapping parts out or swapping engines. It's, taking out computers, reprogramming them, diagnosing them. So I got so involved with that process. I went to this University of Waterloo to become an engineer, learned how to build circuit boards and really build software around these high-tech solutions. It gave me the opportunity to work in the tech industry. So I worked in California and San Francisco at a big chip manufacturer named NVIDIA. They make graphics cards that go into computers across the world, and really learned how these high-tech companies build these products. And I wondered, as I was going through this experience, why the automotive or transportation industry, from truck to vehicle, was not using the data that's generated on the machine. There's so much sensors and information. And things have changed now from, I'm talking back like 10 years ago, where there wasn't so much use of diagnostics in the cloud. But now with telematics and ELD, vehicles are connected to the cloud, data's flowing, and it's like a fire hose. There's more information than anyone knows what to do with. And what you need is smart analytics to be able to dissect through it. So that's kind of been the journey. And I think the simple concept is this: a mechanic or technician learns by experience. If they take 10 trucks of the same type, they'll know very quickly what the top 5 types of failures are. And then they get really good at that vehicle. There is a possibility for software to not like take over that, but to start to learn patterns and help identify these things, because we're having a shortage with technicians in the market. And like these young technicians need more guidance and help through these problems. So there's a lot of ways this kind of solution or these level solutions can augment or further support the process.
Yes. Yeah. And you mentioned a few things there that gets me super excited, because when you think of where you started, the journey that you went, you basically got to go to, in your space, like Hollywood per se. And then through that process, you were able to think about, okay, what about the transportation industry? Okay, what about the transportation industry? And I think that's really, it highlights the industry, because really once it's in your blood per se, it's really hard to shed those ways of thinking. And it's nice that, again, you've been boots on the ground. You understand what a tech goes through, and you've watched just the life cycle of a tech go from, okay, it's just carburetor, it's just mechanical pieces, to, oh, what's a computer and what's all this wires, and then just that whole natural progression. I think it's really cool that, again, obviously your education level is very high and you've been able to work with some of the best in this space to bring it right back to that conversation. So I think that's really cool from a grassroots perspective. And then the fire hose analogy is excellent too, because there is so much data and there's so many what if conversations and I think conversations when they're not really sound. So it's almost like a mythical conversation. And I take part in them all the time where, what if this happens? Yeah, I don't know. And they kind of go over here and it's this massive rabbit trail. But then you have generational differences. You have obviously cultural differences. You have all this interpretation of data where really it's just blasting you in the face. And you're kind of like, whoa, okay. So again, funneling it down so that way it's usable. So I guess that was a question, as well as my excitement is, through your entire journey, did you always know you're going to come back to wanting to start your own company, but being in the transportation space, or what kind of led for that to happen?
Yeah, I guess one thing as an engineer working in the tech industry, you start to quickly see what it's like to be an engineer forever. And I realized, hey, if I want to make a bigger impact, I should take this experience I grew up with and take this knowledge I'm gaining as an engineer in these big tech companies and see if I could put together and solve a problem set that probably no one else would be well positioned to solve. And I think it was more like that and just wanting to challenge myself. So that's kind of the reason why I jumped into it. But I did get a little lucky, like upfront when we started this concept, I pitched it to Bill Ford. So he's like the great grandson of Henry Ford. And he had a team around him and they said, hey, we'll fund you, initial $150,000, get started, start working on this kind of thing. And they help support, the initial concept. And that kind of enabled me to say, okay, you know what, I'll move away from my job and jump into building a company on this topic. So I think that was very helpful as well. Sometimes you got to get a little lucky, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And good for you. That honestly, I applaud you for that. That's really cool because it shows you got guts. And it's a little different if you just had the money sitting there, but you had to build up the courage even to present it. And again, I think we can talk about terror barriers and people, the fact, like all of the reasons not to come up to play, but I think that's really exciting and really they're admirable. So thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a Pitstop Connect perspective, can you kind of talk about when did the company start? Like, so if it was launch date, if you wanted to start from there and kind of walk us through the journey of the company so far, where do people go, obviously from a website perspective to check it out? And yeah, we'll kind of dive through some of this conversation.
Sounds good. So the company was actually started in the summer of 2015. That's when we got that initial funding from Ford, and then we kind of focused full time. And I think for a few years, we're really spending a lot of energy trying to capture data from vehicles, bring it into the cloud. Back then, there was telematics, but there was no ELD mandate. So the volume of connected vehicles was still relatively small. But what we did in the early days was spend a lot of energy on saying, what is the data that comes off the truck? Can you look for patterns within it? For example, if you look at the battery voltage over time, you get clear signs and indication of, is the battery going to start decaying, especially if the temperature changes to a point where the vehicle will no longer start? And can you start alerting people? And we've been able to prove models like that with 90+% accuracy, testing it with the manufacturers directly, suppliers. And so there's that level of depth. We just dug so deep on the science behind the data and try to build these models, while at the same time, our peers, the telematics companies, were so focused on delivering ELD, which is a lot more of, how do I get connectivity to the cloud, make sure logging's in place, and I can sell the solution to customers. So we're so R&D focused. And now we've come to a point where we see the proliferation of connected trucks. Everyone sees value prop for various reasons around fuel, idling. I mean, there's many value props for why you need telematics. And the layer we're sitting on top of is saying, okay, now that you have telematics, there's all this data. So you get fault codes tripping on every vehicle, sometimes every few minutes. Like, what is important? What is not? What do you actually send in for service? When do you tell your driver, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal, versus them freaking out? So like, how do you manage that end-to-end process? And at the same time, run an efficient fleet so that you have as much uptime as possible. And these are the questions that we're really trying to focus in on and try to help fleets with. And it's all by taking telematics data, taking service and maintenance data, feeding it into this AI engine, and really it's just analytics, it's running math, it's looking at patterns. And then it's coming up with suggestions such as, out of your fleet of 100, here's the 3 vehicles that you should take care of or look at within the next week or so. And if you don't, there's a higher risk that they're going to experience some form of downtime, and that could be more painful for you. So now you can plan around your schedule, and we've shown increases of uptime for a fleet by up to 25% across the fleet. And that equates to about $2,000 per vehicle per year. But it also depends on the value of the truck per hour to the customer or to the fleet. So, it varies, but that's generally what we're focused on and what we're delivering right now to customers.
Man, that's incredible. There's so many wins there. So I'm gonna put myself in the lens of a driver, and check engine code comes on, kind of wigs you out. And I've been there myself. What does that mean? It's like, I don't know. So the cost of that process alone can be thousands of dollars. And I give an example ultimately where I'm the driver until Thursday. I have Friday off. I notice that there's a fault code on there. I'm thinking it has something to do with the DEF system, not a big deal. I park the truck on a Thursday afternoon, drop the keys off at the desk. I'm gone. Come Friday morning, someone else wants to hop in that truck. Oh, I can't. There's a fault code. So how many customers are you not servicing? And what is that truck costing you ultimately to sit? All for something that had nothing to do with nothing. It could just be change at your next oil change, or it could be fixed, I guess, at the next oil change. So that's just one of the many directions that you're saving so much from a mental health perspective, cost perspective. So that's really cool. But I also think the timing is really unique, because you went from the R&D to where you are now. 2015 basically to 2019, that was a huge R&D phase and basically planning phase for ELD, so electronic logging devices, more so on the state side. And Pitstop Connect, you guys are both sides of the border, right? Canada and US?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so that's really powerful, because people are already planning to install these things through the ECM or however they're going to hardwire them into their power units. Your timing there was really unique. But then now in the Canadian market, we hit the mandate June 2021, soft enforcement until June 2022. Same thing, where there's a mass rush. I think there's 16 ELD providers right now on the Transport Canada list. Same conversation. And you have such a sweet niche, because it's, as long as I understand this right, it's an integration with the ELD that will ultimately help save profitability, obviously, and safer vehicles on the road.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's no extra hardware cost. You literally made the investment to get ELD equipped. Your vehicles are tracking. You solve the kind of regulation problem, but now you're going to have the ability to increase efficiency, and just with software. And the ROI is like over 10x. So there's no true loss in profitability to the business. It actually improves productivity overall. And that's really what our customers get excited by, is the ability to help them do their job better without having to spend that much money overall. And that's really cool here. And I think that's the future of the connected vehicle. And this is one of those use cases that's really going to be valuable. We talk about, like, you know, the vehicle talking to your house and then being smart. And there's all these what if scenarios, I think, to your earlier point. But this is like a real scenario that I can solve today and is actually giving value to customers. And I think that's really important, because we got to take it one step at a time and be practical. Can't just always be hypothetical and theoretical with the way we promote these kind of concepts.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Especially because you can save someone money literally the moment that they install it, and working through that process of the time frame. And yeah, I like that you talked about the batteries, because there's so many mechanical pieces that we obviously rely on. And it's a guess before our conversation, it is a guess. How long can this last for? Well, I don't know. I'm in minus 35 for half the year. It's like, I don't know. I'm in plus 30 for half. So understanding now, okay, well, I can give you well, you said it was a 90% accuracy on that one example. So again, that is huge. So the fleet managers listening, carriers listening, this is a must, because ultimately you don't make money when your vehicle's parked for something that doesn't need to be parked for. If you could have been like, hey, let's buy this replacement part 6 months ago, because we know in 6 months time. But I think from a purchasing decision too, that's where I get really excited as well, is we continue to navigate through an equipment shortage. What's the right type of equipment to buy that's actually available? Okay, well, I can give you some accurate facts and accurate data to help you make those purchasing decisions. So I just get really stoked. I think it's so cool.
Well, even in the shortage right now, it's like everyone's keeping vehicles for longer. And so it's even more important to understand the data and have it work for you, versus you waking up and having chaos. Like, if you have a vehicle that's a few years older than you're used to, the number of issues that can pop up can be significant. So either you let it hit you hard in the face, or you get ahead of it. And there's easy ways to get ahead of it. So one of our customers, what happens is they're in the colder climate, and it seems that the starter motors keep failing on the truck. And it's these large Volvo trucks that are doing long haul trips. And every 6 months or so, the starter motor is giving out. And being able to identify that ahead of time is really powerful for them, so that it's not getting stuck along the way when it's at the gas station fueling up or that type of thing. And so just small things like that is what these kind of solutions like Pitstop are able to address instantly. Like, the data is already flowing, you turn on an analysis, and you'll now prevent a large number of issues that appear.
Awesome. So just to confirm, it's pitstopconnect.com is where people can go, obviously, to learn more.
Yeah. And you can register to the dashboard from there. And there's an ability to get in and see the data, and you can connect your own fleet if you have one of the major ELD providers. So you can try it out for free today. And it's pitstopconnect.com to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll make sure to include that in the show notes too. And I think that's, actually didn't know about the dashboard that you can get started for free, because I was hoping you could walk us through the customer experience where, say, I'm the carrier, I already have a major ELD. Can you walk us through there? Like, again, go as deep as you want or as high level as you want. Just again, we still have time, but what would that look like from a user perspective?
Yeah. So once you hit our website at pitstopconnect.com and you click sign in or register, it'll throw you into the product, and right away you'll see a screen that says, which ELD provider are you connected with? So that it has all the big ones, the Geotab, Sensaras, Fleet Complete, Verizon through Fleetmatics and such. And so you can pick any of these ones, and there's a few more on the list. And then it'll ask you for an API key, or there's a certain registration key that you'll get. You enter those credentials in, and boom, all the data starts flowing from that system into our solution. And within 30 minutes or so, you'll start to get insights, and you'll start to prioritize and rank your vehicles and tell you, okay, based on all the data from the past few weeks, it looks like these 3 vehicles have some critical issues on it. And the rest of them are all minor, so don't worry about it yet. Your next service visit, you can go and check it out. And you'll start to also see a chart that shows you what your downtime hours are per month. So it's tracking in real time. It's telling you how you can improve the downtime hours. So let's say your whole fleet experienced 100 hours of downtime last month. We give suggestions as to how you can drop that to 80 hours for this month and try to really work with the fleet manager on making a more efficient process. So that chart is really resonates with the executives at these fleets that really want to know the financial implications of investing in such solutions. So it further enhances the fleet manager's job because it makes his life easier. Plus, it helps him sell to his bosses that he's doing such a great job.
Yes. Yeah, and that's an instant win when you're in that role, when you can say, look, it's no longer I think, it's a no, look, this is it right here. So that's super easy. I like that. From a price perspective, and if there's confidentiality, you don't have to dive too deep, but is it a subscription, like a monthly, like breakdown per truck? Is it per fleet, or how would you price that out too?
Yeah, we fit on a per vehicle per month basis, and we try to price it based on the value that it can drive to the fleet. So we're completely focused on not this being a cost center, but that it is going to drive additional revenue and uptime, that it's going to give you a 10x ROI. That's the way we try to price and focus our attention. So as we work with fleets, they try out the solution, they start talking to our team, we're able to kind of price that out based on the customer.
For you. Yeah, that's awesome. So who would be the, I guess, the ideal client? Small carrier, mid-size, large, is there really any, I guess, prerequisites as a, hey, I want to sign up today kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. We've been spending a lot of time with the mid and small carriers. We have a few larger ones, but I would say, in the 1,000 vehicle range is on the larger side. We have a number of customers between 100 and 500 vehicles. Then we have a handful that are less than 100. So that's kind of the way we've been working with customers. It's the key though, is that the fleet really depends on the trucks for business. So logistics, we've also worked with a lot of utility fleets where they have, pumps and things on the truck that they need for their workers to go and do the job on the field. So any time where the truck itself or the vehicle itself is super critical to the business, that's where this solution becomes a no-brainer.
Yeah. There's so many wins here, man. I'm so pumped. I get like, if you're whoever's watching, you can see I just shake my head in agreement when I get really like into what you're saying, because I'm like, there's so many wins from a safety perspective, and I naturally live in the compliance world. Like that's my background in education, and I'm always like, yeah, there's a lot of wins here, and just not having to fill out a work order because you know that you can extend it, or that you know that you got this in advance. Like there's so many like the small wins that equal huge wins, that I like the fact that you guys, it feels like you've really thought about, okay, if I was my customer, what would be the greatest thing? I want an ROI. Perfect. How can I simplify this for them? Here it is. And I think, all in all, it's a really sound product, which is really good.
Yeah, exactly. Like just trying to make it simple and do your job for you as much as we can. Not taking it over, but supplementing. So those tasks such as, hey, I got to call this driver and tell him to go to the shop. Like, how can we make that easier and automated? Can the alert get sent automatically to the service center, to the driver, so that even if you follow up with a call, they're kind of already well informed what's going to happen, how long it's going to take. These things kind of add up. They're small things, they add up in value over time. And that's what's cool about where we're at today in the ecosystem, the market.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I was actually in a conversation this weekend, and it was a guy, and we were talking about automation and workflow automation and digitalization. And he's like, let's allow humans to do what humans do best. And it doesn't have to be, hey, so-and-so, this is going on. It's like, no. There's so many more important things a service manager, underwriter could be doing, not doing those things. And I think I have some friends that's what they do as their career. And that's one of the biggest complaints they have is the notifying. I don't got time to call 6 people to let them know these 6 things. Like, you can't have the computer do it. So you're definitely leading the industry with that too, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's really cool to see.
Agreed. Yeah. So how about from an ELD partner perspective, and again, I'm not going to stretch you and talk about things like that's maybe exclusive to agreements and stuff, but how are you seeing 2 things? So first, from an ELD provider's perspective, what's their response been like? But also, is there in this conversation a prerequisite for an ELD provider to become a partner with your company?
Yeah, sure. So I guess to the first point or the first question, of course, every ELD provider wants to bring a fleet in and then kind of have them work with them as long as possible. They're all chasing that. So they build these ecosystems and marketplaces, and that's where solutions like ours come in and benefit because it further enhances the reason why a customer will want to stay and be a part of that ecosystem. So I think it's kind of a mutual relationship that benefits both parties. And from our side, we get access to more data, drive more value to customers, grow our customer base, and from their side, it creates a stickier and better experience for their end client. So that's kind of how the relationship has been playing out with ELD providers. The way we work with new partners is we really try to think of like, what are the customers in your network right now experiencing pain? Like, is there certain pain points that this immediately addresses? And then we try to work with a handful of customers to start. And that makes it easier to do integrations and kind of the heavy lifting up front, get the solution in place. You're kind of proving it out in parallel. And then, okay, I can now grow with the rest of the channel. So that's kind of been our strategy for the most part. But at the end of the day, we have a really strong team of software engineers and data scientists. So doing these integrations are kind of fairly easy to us. It's more about, can we create value? So if it's clear that we can drive value to a customer, to a fleet, then we'll jump on it right away. That's how we think about it.
Smart. It's smart. Yeah, I think it's one of the ultimate upsells for an ELD provider too. And I work closely with a couple, and they're ultimately they're all kind of pursuing a very similar client base. There's only so many major carriers in Canada, mid-size. There's tons of small. So to really own that market share, they have to be very strategic. And I think upselling the offerings that you guys have is so smart, because ultimately, well, we want your vehicles to stay in operation, and we want you to continue to make money so you buy more vehicles and you grow your business. So yeah, it's a really natural ecosystem that you're I guess uplifting for them too. And that's really the space that I live in, and Truck Focus is all about. It's all about like this, okay, well, who do you know that I can help, and who do I know that you can help, and just really having a collective community of just improving our industry. And I like that you've talked about different sectors in transportation too, because I think a lot of people get, I guess, stuck at tractor, trailer, traveling down the highway. And it's like, that's a small portion of our industry. When you look at all of the actual commercial vehicles that would require an ELD, they still break down, or they still have no idea the cost of idling. So let's educate them. Or I like the battery example, because yeah, I think those are the things that people don't normally think about unless you're in that space. So I'm glad you highlighted that. And yeah, I just think the solution is really powerful for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it's only going to get better over time, because these models will keep learning and tune itself to the use cases. And I think the experts in the field are ultimately what trains these algorithms to be better. And it's going to be a different world, but the core concepts are the same. You have a vehicle, it wears out over time, and there's certain things you can do to keep it moving for longer. And or you can be ignorant, and it could cost a lot of money and cause a lot of pain. So I think that some of that has always been there, and just now you have the ability to use data and in a way that was never really there. And I think when I was young, growing up in the shop, so the type of thing that I always wondered, like, customer shows up to the shop and the problem has gone so severe, and it's like, man, if we just knew while you're driving and told you at that moment, hey, stop right now, because you're blowing the head gasket, and coolant and oil is leaking, and you're going to burn the engine out, you could prevent a whole ton of issues. And I think this is just a genesis of that background.
Yes. Yeah. And to that point, that's called customer retention. That's also called driver retention. Like, honestly, you want to live in a state of fluidity, knowing ahead of time, this truck will not make it from Toronto to Calgary. Just know that ahead of time and watch what actually happens, because you're not promising your customer something, and you don't have a driver stranded in the middle of winter. So yeah, I think there's just so many ways we could take this that I get excited. From a AI perspective, a data perspective, have you had to overcome a lot of the, like, one of my least favorite sayings in our industry is, we can't do that, we've always done it this way, pen and paper. Nope, pen and paper. Have you had to overcome a lot of those type of, I guess, mindsets of people saying, nah, I don't know, like, AI, that's a fancy term, but I don't know? Or has it been pretty positive just as you've been talking to different industry leaders?
Yeah, I guess it depends on who you talk to. We find that there's a group of people out there like fleet managers and executives that want to be on the cutting edge and they want to try everything, even if things don't make sense. They really want to be forward thinking from that perspective. And then we've seen on the other side where we have a process, it's working perfectly. I don't see no issues. And it's almost like it's a threat to their job because if they start introducing new things, they have to change their day to day and they're kind of happy with the way things are flowing. So I think you face both, but the change is coming so fast now, even if you think about electrification um, and who knows how fast that conversion really will be put into place, but it's clear that it's going to happen over the next decade or two. So it's not like there's a chance it's not going to happen. It's just a matter of time. So because of that, everyone knows from top down that they're going to have to start thinking different, doing things different. And once you're in that mindset, it's easier to adopt new software and new technologies because you kind of know that you have to do it. And I think that's the change I've noticed in the past 2 years, actually, since COVID started, mostly compared to the years before that. I think it's kind of jump started this mindset change, and I think it's going to benefit everyone. But changes always can be painful, but also have a lot of benefits on the other side if you're willing to work with it and make it work for you.
Great. Yeah. Well, you've had a lot of corporations that, no, you got to be in your desk Monday to Friday for 10 hours a day, now working remotely and being like, wow, I'm actually saving money because I don't need these 3 other positions in this building now. Okay. So yeah, I agree though. Our industry, it's just a matter of time. And I often speak on integrating the right technologies because app overload is real and it can be very burdensome regardless of position. And there's fear of loss of job. Like there's a lot of those that's real. But I like the fact that it seems that you come from a really humble and empathetic approach when your team is trying to integrate, not a takeover approach and you have to approach. And I think that's really smart. Just again, being, well, I guess this would be technically year 7. So you have a great lay of the land and it's just exciting to see where you're going.
Yeah. But I think your perspective on like the way COVID has changed the way people work, everyone's seeing disruptions and change, and there's a lot of good things in that, and that's really exciting. And I think for transportation, data is going to be at the center, and it's going to create a win-win-win for everyone. I don't see how there's going to be a loss in opportunity. It's only going to make things better. More information helps people be more productive, make better decisions. And that's always been true through history. And that's why, we as a humanity continue to progress and do better because we get more information, we apply it, we do better, we iterate. And so, yeah, it's really, really exciting.
Agreed. Yeah, completely. So do you think about, because you mentioned a few words before I ask the question, but you mentioned a few words that really resonate with myself. So you talk about the customer, you talk about value, you talk about improvement, you talk about the future. Like I can tell you care about other people. And I think even from the interactions I've had with your team, that's a very common approach is we care and we want to add value and we don't want it just to be a sales ticket item. So do you think about that? Do you lead with that approach where you're like, this is where we have to be? Or is it just, you just happen to think like that and some people on your team pick it up? Or is that like, is that kind of your part of your foundation is, and we want to add value, we really want to care about our customers? Is that how you guys as a company really think?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of goes back to that growing up in this environment, and you kind of know that the people who are tend to be the smartest are the people who realize they don't know much and are willing to learn and kind of be open. And I think we got to learn from the customers and the people doing the job every day that make the difference in order to make the best product and make this kind of AI technology help the industry be more effective. So I guess it's just a nature of, if we really want to be successful, I believe that this is the only approach that we can take, is it has to create value. Otherwise, it'll just be pie in the sky, might sound good on paper, but not really do anything. And that, although that might be easier to implement, I think it's not creating long-term value. And then what's the point? You want to work on something meaningful. So even if it's harder. And I think that's the approach here.
Yes.
Trying to make it right. No matter how long it takes. And you want to do it right so that it can actually help people.
Awesome. So awesome, man. And I really value that. And I think that as an overarching value really leads our industry too. Because as we talked about even before we hit record, there's a lot of, I guess, hostile conversations and a lot of just tough times happening right now that are really being stirred up. And I like living on the other side of that. I like living in a space where let's talk about things that are actually moving the needle forward or that we can care about and feel good about. And I think when we treat people as people and we add value to the long-term plan of others, I think that's a really just strategic place, but a nice place to live. And you're right, there's longevity there. There's a reason to come work, obviously, at Pitstop Connect as well, because you're obviously attracting good talent. And yeah, it's just a really good corporate, not even corporate, I guess it's good culture as your company to have, because that's addictive to your customers too. And like, I like starting off an email with good day. And even if they're having a bad day, I'm just like, well, it could be a good day. You pick. But when you lead with that kind of intentionality, and I can see it. And I'm glad we've had this conversation because I know our listeners can see it like, hey, like the AI is not scary and technology doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like, let's just work with guys like Shiva and let's work with Pitstop Connect because it's a good thing. It's going to save us money. It's going to make us money. So yeah, I think there's just so many wins in our conversation today, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It doesn't have to, I guess there's two ways, mindsets. There's a mindset that's a growth mindset, which is what you exactly just described as being productive and thinking about the positives and how to, even when something is negative in front of you or a challenge, how to work, you learn from it and do something better. And then there's like what they call like a zero sum mindset, which is you kind of keep moving towards this place where, hey, nothing's ever going to get better. This is just the way it is. And I'm kind of stuck. And then when you're stuck like that, you're not really helping other people, and it creates a really bad outcome, at least from my perspective. So I think we want to try to help it push the growth mindset and help everyone grow, because there is room for everyone to grow. It doesn't have to be kind of a zero sum and we fight one another. And but there's a lot of noise and there's all these varying views right now in the space. So let's see how things play out. But we got to keep pushing this agenda, I think.
Agreed. Yeah, I completely agree. And I normally ask, is there anything else you like to share? So that's still an open question. I think that was a really solid way to just, I guess, given a really good ending to our conversation, because ultimately we talked on possibility, we talked on growth, we talked on the journey. And yeah, the fact that you've been able to start this from a place of, this is how I grew up. Then you literally went to Hollywood in your career. You got to see what the best of the best is doing to bring that type of expertise and knowledge and passion into our industry that desperately needs what you're offering. Like that is, like I had told you before, I just see so many ways that you're helping. And I think a lot of times it's going to be like, oh, I didn't realize I helped like that. Oh, I didn't realize I actually saved that, because we can't know everything. And it's just, yeah, I'm really glad that you highlighted that at the end, because it's true. And I think we have an opportunity right now as people to say, well, do I want to live with opportunity and a glass overflowing mindset, or is it doom and gloom mindset? And ultimately we have choice, which I think is cool. So exactly. But yeah, obviously, if there is anything else you'd like to share, now is a great time, as well as can you recap where people can go just to learn more about Pitstop Connect?
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to say was just, we're here to help. So even if you came to our website, pitstopconnect.com, you registered, signed in, or try to get in contact with our team, we would be here to show you what you need to know, help you learn about the process, even if you're not ready to, jump on a solution. So just think of us as a helping hand, genuinely here to have conversations and learn from each other. And that's what I want to offer, at least. And plus, we do have a solution that works with the top ELD players out there right now and can help you drive more uptime on your fleet. And we'd love to talk about that as well.
Awesome.
To anyone who's interested.
Yes. Yeah, man. And just, I'm super grateful for that. So I'll obviously include the website in the show notes as well. And I'll make sure that I do that call to action too, where people can sign up. And then if they have questions, reach out to the team, because I think that's a spectacular feature, because they're able to see within the 30 minutes you said of once everything is there, here's your information. Instantly, I'm going to tell you, okay, these 3 vehicles, yeah, you need to get them looked at. And no, these ones are still fine. So many wins. And just, again, as you as a person, as your company, and I'm excited just to see where things go. Super grateful too that you took the time to join me on a podcast. Like, yeah, this was a big win for myself just in my journey, because this is a space I really want to invest more time in and get smarter in, but that way I can be a parrot. Like I like relaying what other smart people say to myself. So this is an awesome opportunity. So again, Thank you so much, buddy. This was a great conversation.
Appreciate it. It was a great conversation. Appreciate it as well. Thank
Absolutely. Okay. Have a good rest of your day.
you. Okay,
Shiva, I honestly really appreciate the information that you shared in the conversation today and for the impact that you and the team at Pitstop Connect is having in our industry. Just want to say thank you so much. I also really admire the fact that Pitstop Connect is really helping carriers in their day-to-day operations to provide an opportunity to better utilize equipment and ultimately make more money. So for those listening, I really encourage you to visit pitstopconnect.com to learn more about the solution and to see how they're helping our industry, but also to learn more about how they can ultimately help save you money, keep your vehicles safer while on the roadways. I also highly recommend that you check out the demo. So just make sure that you get that done. It's truly worth your time. Thank you again, Shiva. I really appreciate your time. And to our community, what would you say is the most costly repair you've experienced to date? So either let me know in the comments or send me an email and give me your answer. I've included my email in the show notes. Before you leave today, make sure that you like this episode. Share it out because there's so much value that Shiva shared today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel that you're listening on. As always, let's create a pivotal impact. Bye.